Hi, everyone. I am Mary Kate Luke. I'm the marketing specialist here at Hasmark Publishing International, and I am joined today by my co-host, Jen Gibson. She is the Director of Marketing and Publishing with Hasmark, and we're here today to introduce you to a wonderful author of ours who's written a really beautiful book. This is Nancy Potter, and her book is titled Barber's Cut: Beyond the River's Reach. We're so happy to be chatting with you today, Nancy. I know this story is so special to you. It's so important because of the family ties it has to you. I was hoping you could talk to us a little bit about the writing process and how everything kind of got started. I know this has been a labor of love for you.
Yes, it's actually been a very long labor of love. I remember distinctly sitting on the lanai at my parents' house outside. It was 1985, and my grandparents were there. In my book, they're Lily and Tom, and I had a cassette recorder, which is how we recorded things back then, and I recorded stories from them. And that was the first time that I'd ever actually done anything toward writing the book. And the characters, Jenny and Clyde, are my great-grandfather and great-grandmother. They were these bigger-than-life characters. Even though I never really knew either one of them, I was told stories constantly by my grandmother, Lily. And it's like they were sort of part of my life, even had made impressions on me, which I don't quite understand, but I think it's kind of interesting psychology. And so I always looked up to these people who I didn't know, but who I was led to believe were these wonderful people. And I can tell you that my house is filled with pieces of their lives. Maybe that's part of the reason I still feel connected to them. And I actually didn't start writing until the year 2000. I even have a photograph of me sitting on the floor with a laptop computer writing my first page.
That's exciting. And not many people have a photograph of them writing a book.
I think, I come from a family that keeps everything, obviously. And you wouldn't believe the things in my house. So I guess I just follow along.
This story is one with deep personal meaning to you and your family. How did you know you wanted to share it with the world?
I never had a doubt that I was going to share it. Growing up with these larger-than-life people that had been in my family, it was always going to happen. And people would tell me that no one's going to be interested in reading stories about your family. And I didn't believe that. To me, it had always been a grand tale worth retelling, and that I was going to do that. My father would tell me, don't say anything bad. It'll look bad on our family. And I felt very confined by that concept for a long time. And then as I started writing and researching more into their lives and who they were, I realized they're just human beings. They aren't necessarily the hero and heroine that I was led to believe, and that they're dealing with the same things in life that we all are. Their life just happened to be bigger and grander than most people's are.
That's incredible. And I'm sure you discovered so many wonderful and probably crazy moments and stories along the way.
Yes, and I didn't know how I was going to write about him because he was he died in 1931. So it's a long time ago. Or how the biggest problem I could see was how I was going to write about his businesses. I knew nothing about his businesses except a few little things. Well, in all the research, I was able to find out so much. It just went on and on and on. And that's what made it possible to write.
That's incredible. Did you find it hard to sort of narrow down, especially after all these years and all this writing with all the information, kind of what you wanted to include in the story?
Well, that's kind of a funny question. The way I look at it, my great-grandfather, Clyde, had a 1,000-page life that I had to cut down to about 550 pages. And I was told to cut the novel in half, that it wouldn't sell, that it needed to be 2 books. And I went to a lot of trouble reading books about cutting things up, and it just didn't really seem possible. I took out a chapter, I took out things here and there, and then it was still a really long book, which is why it's going to be such a great miniseries. But that's beside the point. But I held to my guns about the length and felt about what was appropriate for the length. And I was thrilled when the editor told me it didn't need to be shortened. So I guess time will tell.
Excellent. This project has spanned many years for you. Were there any difficulties that you faced in the writing process? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Well, as I said, the length was the biggest problem. And I suffered with that for a long time. And then when I finally decided I wasn't going to cut it, I was very uncomfortable with that because I had all these people who knew a lot more about books and selling books than I could ever hope to know. And so it was difficult at first to feel confident about that decision when everyone was telling me I should do it differently. But eventually I found the confidence, and I stuck to my guns and followed my gut. And so that was very difficult to do. Now I wouldn't dream of cutting any more of it out. In fact, maybe I should add that chapter I got rid of. And then another issue was life. Life kept getting in the way, as everybody knows. My first child was born with a rare genetic disease that was expected to be his demise. So I spent 4 grueling years keeping him alive. And so when he was getting better, I was able to start the writing. As I told you, I have a picture of me writing. And then when he was about 8 is when I was able to start writing. And then I had another son, who was born with sensory issues. So his growing up was very uncomfortable and difficult. So they were 2 full-time jobs. And I thought after post-divorce, it was difficult to take care of both of them and think about anything else or writing or anything. But I had the generosity of a really close friend. I was able to stay home, take care of the boys, and write full time. And if I hadn't had that opportunity, it never would have gotten written. Most of it was written during those 3 years that I was able to stay home and not worry about bills, or at least have bills paid and not worry about bills is another story. I also had no idea that I would spend so much time researching because I kind of went at this blindly. And when I became obsessed with research. I wanted everything to be as historically accurate as possible. Well, that's another job. And I like to tell the story of, because I don't think people understand, I certainly didn't understand, of when Clyde and Jenny, my great-grandfather and great-grandmother, have their first house, real house. And he carries her over the threshold, sets her down, and turns the light on. And I stopped writing and thought, oh my God, did they have electricity in that tiny house, in that tiny town, in the middle of the bayous on that date? Well, that took at least an hour to find that out. And so, but I'm sure I've missed things, but it won't be from a lack of trying. I tried really hard to be as accurate as I possibly could. And so I think the research was something else I really didn't expect and should have. Now I know better. The next one, I'll be waiting and ready for it and happy to do it.
What do you hope that readers learn and take away from reading this story?
As I think about the book and the story, I hope that it will be something that people will read and realize that regardless of where you came from, you can achieve whatever you put your mind to. Clyde did that, and it wasn't an easy task. And it wasn't, you can't just decide that it's going to happen. You have to make it happen. But his mindset was one of knowing it's going to happen. And where he got that, I don't know. It was intrinsic to his personality, I assume. And so I feel like we are in the United States, we are so fortunate to live in a country where a boy can actually grow up on a flatboat that his parents built and go to the heights that he did in his life. That's just amazing to me. I think it's a unique place where opportunities exist to become whatever you can imagine. And like Napoleon Hill said, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. So I work daily on that.
Excellent. Who would benefit most from picking up this book?
I think anybody would benefit from it. It's entertaining, very entertaining story. I think it's also inspirational. And as you get farther into the book, you'll see that it also causes you to think about human nature and why we do certain things, and that it provides you with a reason for introspection and self-reflection, as you'll have to see later in the book. But I think that it has a lot to offer, not just in being inspirational, but in terms of how we see people and how one-dimensionally we see people, and that we need to not be so quick to judge what a person's like.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people can relate to that in more ways than one.
I agree.
Now, when does Barbara's Cut launch, and where can people get a hold of a copy?
It will launch April 4th on Amazon.
Where can people find you and learn more about you online?
On Facebook, you can find me at Nancy Potter Author. On Instagram, it's at Nancy Potter Author. On LinkedIn, it's Nancy-E-Potter-5190, B as in boy, 63A as in Adam. And on Pinterest, Nancy Potter 3760.
Perfect. Well, that wraps it all up. Thank you so much, Nancy, for chatting with us today. We're so looking forward to Barbara's Cut being launched and being out in the world and having this book available for people to read and enjoy this story. And I think that I'm predicting that you should release an extra version with the bonus chapter that was omitted.
There you go. And I just want to say one other thing. My advice to aspiring authors is to never give up, to keep going. It's been 35 years for me, and listen to what others say, but remember that your gut is always speaking to you. And that's what I wanted to add.
I love that. It's so important. The journey is worth it for the destination.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you.